Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm Annabelle, Talent Community Coordinator at BioBuzz. I'm very excited to be here with our amazing guest, Karen Haslbeck, today. This Career Catalyst session dives into a critical aspect of leadership, empathy. So as a fractional HR executive and founder of HRX Consulting, Karen is going to bring a wealth of experience in building strong, high-performing teams. And today she's going to share some insights on why emotional intelligence is a game changer for leaders, especially those navigating new organizations and diverse team dynamics. A little bit about Karen. So she's an accomplished HR leader with over 20 years of experience, including 15 years in biotech and pharma. And she's built and scaled teams across commercial, corporate, and R&D functions, and specializes in organizational development, talent strategy, and employee engagement. Before we get started, I do want to give a big thank you to our sponsor, BioTrack, for supporting today's program. BioTrack is a top resource for upskilling in the life sciences and has trained over 17,000 scientists through cutting-edge biotech workshops. You can visit biotrack.com to learn more. This event is also part of the BioBuzz Talent Lab, which is your go-to resource for career growth and industry connections. So I highly encourage you to join the Talent Lab today. That's how you'll find out about more opportunities like this, as well as jobs. All right, so let's get started. I'm going to hand it over to Karen.
Okay, thank you, Annabelle, and thank you to everyone who's joined the call. Basically, I've been in the work world for many years, as some of you on the call, I'm sure, have as well. I've experienced many types of leaders. Some experience great leadership skills, or exhibit, I should say, and some need some serious work. The cutthroat days in business are long over, and they need to be replaced by understanding and compassion. The last several years in the work world and in the world have been very challenging for people. And, we have to keep that in mind. The world's changed how we do business. Great leaders need to be on board with this. People don't want to be told what to do anymore. We want to know that we are experiencing great relationships at work. We want to know that we are supported and that we have true partnerships. 58% of what sets a leader apart is their emotional intelligence and how they display it in the work world. Next. So let's start by first defining empathy. Empathy is totally different than other words you may hear, which we'll go through, but empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of others. It does not mean you agree with the other person. It does not mean you even know how they're feeling, but you share the feelings with that other person. It's a critical skill in leadership because it helps build strong relationships and also trust within the teams. It also does enhance team dynamics. So it improves communication. It would lead to increased performance and collaboration. There's many skills needed to be an effective leader. And if you think of the best leader you've ever had in your career, you can think of many skills that they exhibited. And you probably wouldn't think of empathy as being one of them, but if you didn't have someone with empathetic leadership, you would know it. There's a lot going on in the world. People are struggling. A lot of great employees out there have been promoted to leaders or managers, and they've not been given the training or the skills to be able to accomplish this. We see it all the time. Somebody's technically amazing, and we say, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to promote you. We're going to make you a manager or a supervisor or team lead, but we are not going to give you the skills to do it. And we see that a lot. So, it can be taught with practice. Not everybody is born a leader, but it's definitely skills that can be taught to people. We just find that in the workforce right now, people are not taking the time to get people the necessary training. And sometimes when they set it up, they're just too busy to attend. So I think what we need to do moving forward, especially with the way the world is changing today, is we have to make time to train our leaders, to give the leaders the skills they need to successfully lead our teams. Again, empathy is critical because it does help foster deeper connections and understanding. It allows the supervisor to understand other people's feelings and perspectives, and it paves the way for collaboration and trust. So let's dive into empathy just a little bit deeper. Next. So there's a difference between empathy, and I'm sure you've heard the word sympathy. So sympathy is actually feeling pity for another situation without truly connecting to their emotions. We might feel sorry for someone, or we may, not really grasp what they're going through. And that does disconnect us from our employees. The essence of empathy is mostly about using that F word, feelings. So empathy involves a deeper emotional connection. It allows you to understand others' feelings and experiences. And again, it helps you connect on a deeper level, which is critical in the workplace. Next. So a couple of things empathy is not. Empathy is not kindness. It's not sympathy. And it's not sharing your own experience. The worst thing you can do if somebody comes to you with a situation is say, well, let me tell you about my experience with this. People don't want to know that at this point. Maybe later on you can talk to them about your own experience. But when they first come to you, they just want somebody to listen, to understand, to be able to give them some constructive and really not judgmental feedback at this point. You really just want to be able to listen and give maybe a sounding board for the person, and maybe just give them a little bit of guidance. It's again the ability to understand feelings. People want an empathetic leader. A leader might say to someone who comes to them with a situation, "I see how painful this is for you." Again, the person's identifying with the feelings that the employee has. "I can only imagine how difficult this is for you." These things just show that you care, that you listen. And if you think about, I always compare leadership to parenting. Parenting is very tied in. We're all just grown-up kids. So when we get to the workplace, think about how you would parent a child when you think about leading others. You want to set boundaries. You want to have things set structure, because everybody needs that. But they also need a support system they can go to. They need somebody to listen to them, to guide them without judgment, without pointing fingers, without all the things that we do as humans unconsciously, without bias. Okay, so we want to think about how we can do this with our employees. Again, people need support more than ever, and we need to be able to give it to them if we're going to lead. Next. I say empathy is a superpower, because not everybody has it. But once you have it, I think it's just a great thing. It sets you apart from other leaders. So if you think about, I just lost my train of thought. I apologize. If you think about all of us in the workplace, we all come from different backgrounds. We have different skill sets, and we have different motivators. We have different, we've been brought up differently. We've had different leaders in the past. So it's up to leaders and managers to really understand the differences within their teams, so that you can communicate with each person just a little bit differently. It's not a one-size-fits-all way of treating people. You want to be able to find out what your employees need from you and give it to them. Some employees are more private. They might not want to share some of their situations with you, but at the same time, if you're having issues that are not, or that you're bringing to work at times, and we all do it because we're human, people want others to be able to support them and recognize this. So check in with your teams. If you are leading people, check in with your teams, ask them how they're doing. Not just to check a box, but be genuine when you check in with them. And I always say, be tough on the problems, but be kind to people. Next. Let's think about how we could develop empathetic leadership skills. Hold on, I just went ahead of myself. I'm sorry. Let me give you a situation real quick before we move on. So you have an employee who's struggling. They're really normally a high impact employee. They get, all their work done. They meet all their deadlines, all their numbers, all their goals. But you see them struggling. They've been struggling for the past couple months. And I have this happen all the time as an HR leader. People come to me and they'll say, "Oh, my employee's struggling, and they've been struggling for a few months. I think I probably need to manage them out." My first instinct is to say, "Did you speak to that employee?" No. they're just not doing well. They just don't seem engaged. Something's going on. So a manager's instinct, and when you're promoted to a leadership role without being trained, I consider you a manager because you're a task-driven person. And sometimes you don't have the necessary soft skills to be a leader. So a manager's instinct would say, I'm kind of done with you. You're not meeting your numbers. I can't guarantee what the future holds for you here. And I've heard managers say that over and over and over. How inspired do you think that employee is going to be to wake up the next morning and come to work? Not very inspired. So a leader would go to that same employee, a leader with empathetic skills and leadership skills would go to that employee and say, your numbers have been down. I've noticed a difference in your work performance. What's going on? Are you okay? I'm really worried about you. They're going to try to find out what's going on with that employee because it's different. It's not the same as it was prior, to the situation that's going on. Sometimes the employee will tell you what's going on. Sometimes they'll just say, look, I'm dealing with something outside of here, outside of work. I'm not trying to bring it on site, but at the same time, I'm having a hard time digesting. So, it could be they could have a sick child. They could have marital problems. They could have a parent that's dying that they're taking care of. They could have so many things. We just don't know what's going on with people on the outside. That's why developing empathy within our leadership skill toolbox is critical. Because again, there's probably 1,000 skills that out there that make a leader a great leader. And if we sat and thought about our great leaders that we've had, we could list them all, and this call could go on for several hours. But the one that is so critical in today's world is empathy. But of course, when somebody has something going on, it's going to impact them. It's going to impact their performance. And sometimes your manager can know where you're coming from and kind of associate with you, and sometimes they can't. So what happens if you have an employee that comes to you and they're struggling and you've never had that particular situation before? What could you do as a leader to find out what's going on with that employee? The best thing to do, if you don't have anything to compare it to, is just ask open-ended questions. Try to find out what's going on with that employee. How can I support you? What can we do as a company to support you? What do you need from us? We want to see you improve and get back to the way you were, the way you were performing. We are here to support you. It's simple things. Think about what you would do if it was a close friend that came to you. But you want to apply, I'm not telling you to be close friends with the people you work with, but I'm telling you to display that empathetic leadership at work. Next. So if you look at both the sides of our brain, leaders or managers usually have that strong left brain orientation. So that's the task-oriented part of our brain. They excel in task, organization, execution, telling people what they need to do. But that right side is where we find empathy. And that's where we have our emotional awareness in that right side. Not everybody uses that side of their brain or knows how to use that side of the brain. So we have to, when we do leadership training, we try to get people to work on exercising that right side of your brain. But there's so many things you can do to grow and use that side of the brain. Anything where you're involving creativity, flexibility. But when you have that right side of your brain that you're working on, you are set apart from the rest of the leaders. Some things that you could do to really exercise and use your right side of your brain. Reading helps. Anything creative. Some of us like to sing. Singing. All those things that activates that right side of your brain. So as many times a day as you can, even laughing would activate it. So as many times in the course of your day that you can, try to use the right side of your brain while you're at work. I know a lot of us, go through the work day and we're in a directing mode where we're telling people what they need to do, what happens if they don't do it, what happens to the organization if they don't do it, what the implications are. Let's think a little bit differently about how we can lead using our right side of our brain. What can you do to support the people that are struggling? What can you do as a leader to be different from the other leaders? And I always tell people, don't mimic how you're being led, because again, I think sometimes the higher up the chain in a company you go, or the career level, you see less empathy. They're more results driven, especially C-level people are more results driven, which is perfectly fine. But don't mimic how you're being managed. Mimic how you would want to be managed. I think that's a big difference. You would want compassion. You would want someone to be there for you and to be able to assist you when you're struggling, because we've all gone through many struggles in the past several years. So next, please. So, some of the key things that show that you're an empathetic leader, one of the biggest ones to me is listening. A lot of us do not listen to understand. We listen to respond. Or you have a lot of leaders who are very distracted when an employee goes to talk to them. They have many other things going on. They're looking at their smartwatch. They're just thinking about the next thing they have to do. Give the employee the attention they deserve and actively listen to them when they have concerns. It's the only way you're going to know what's going on with your employees, with your teams, and with the organization. Engage fully with speakers, acknowledging their feelings and demonstrating genuine interest in their message. Again, it might not be important to you, but when an employee has an issue, it's their reality. And we can't ignore somebody's reality. We have to, again, not sympathize with it, empathize with it. And it also does help to build trust. We can build trust through our communication, and that's pivotal in fostering relationships. And why do we want strong relationships at work? Because we want to be able to get things done through our teams. And this is the only way to do it. Dictating, people don't want people to tell them what to do. We don't want to be a dictator environment anymore. We don't want to just tell people to do and hope they figure it out. We want to be able to support them. The only way to do that is with empathy. Next. Emotional intelligence and self-awareness, it all goes hand in hand. It really does. And we could talk a lot more about emotional intelligence and self-awareness. But one big thing is just understanding your own emotions, recognizing and managing your own emotions as well as others. It does help to facilitate better interpersonal relationship. Sometimes we all have emotions we don't even realize we're portraying to others. So I think it's just that self-awareness, carrying that with us on a daily basis to, not be overly critical of others, not be judgmental. We all have certain biases we carry into the workplace as well, and we carry around in the world. But again, having that self-awareness does help us to understand not just ourselves, but other people. And then, leaders with high emotional intelligence, again, I think this has been in every slide. It creates a positive work environment, and it leads to improved collaboration, performance, and trust, which is huge. In any relationship, we need trust. And this is the best way to establish it. And this, what I'm saying right here is not just in the workforce. You can use this in any part of your life. You want to show people empathy. There are a lot of people. My daughter's one. She's 20 years old, and we talk all the time about developing empathy, which she has not developed yet. So I'm trying to work with her on that and explain to her how it works and how she needs this in her career and in her life moving forward. And there's an old quote that says, people don't care what you know until they know that you care. So, that's more than true ever in today's dynamic world. So next, please. So, if you want to understand another person, try to walk a mile in their shoes. This says walk a mile. It should say walk a mile in my shoes. Just, try to put yourself in someone else's place just for a moment. If they're coming to you with a concern or a struggle, picture what it must be like to be them. If it's a new employee, think about how you felt when you were a new employee. If they're going through a personal situation they just can't handle. Recall an experience that you had of your own. Think about how you felt. And again, if you don't, I think I mentioned this before, if you don't have similar experiences, we don't all, ask open-ended questions, take an interest in that person. It means quite a bit. Next, please. Key attributes. Key attributes you want to display to show that you're an empathetic leader. You can click, Annabelle. One is perspective. Keep your perspective at bay. This is about their situation. Don't be judgmental. Don't be thinking, certain biases about the person. Keep it in perspective of what they're going through. Don't put your own opinions into this, your own thoughts. One of the worst things you can do if somebody comes to you and you're trying to be empathetic is say, let me tell you about what happened to me. Don't do that either. That's definitely not displaying empathy. That's putting it, again, turning it around to something about you. But you want to focus on that employee. You can go back later and have conversations about something that might have happened to you that's related, but not at that initial conversation. You need to show support at that point. Annabelle, you can click. Non-judgment. I said this before. Don't judge people by what they're going through. Again, we're all human. We all have stuff happen in our lives. Try to just keep that aside. And of course, I mentioned this several times, biases. I think biases get in the way so much in the work world. And we have to remember everybody was brought up differently. Everybody grew up in different cultures. Everybody has worked in different environments. So everybody comes into a team with different experiences that can either hinder or help them at times. But just be cognizant of that. We're all different, yet we're all the same. So recognizing emotion. One of the worst things you can do is show emotion when somebody's coming to you for support. You want to, be the stronger person. Again, not sympathize with them, but empathize and keep your own emotion in check. And communicate understanding. Again, you don't have to agree. You don't have to be able to really know what they're going through, but you can communicate that you understand. You can understand the situation. Here's how we'll move forward. I understand it must be tough what you're going through. Let's talk about a solution. Empathy drives connection. And that's, again, what we all want in the workplace. There's a lot of leaders out there that will say, I don't really want to connect with my employees. I just want them to come in and do their job and go home and do a great job and make me look good. And that's such an old school way of thinking. It sounds like to me like concepts from the 80s and the 90s. Again, nowadays, people do not want that. The younger, especially younger generations, if there's any younger generations on the call, that you want support. You don't want somebody to dictate to you what you need to be doing at every minute of every day. You want somebody to understand your struggles. You want somebody to understand that you might be behind on a certain project because you're going through something. It's not going to last forever. It's usually a temporary situation. So you just need that support while it's happening. Don't try to, Tony Robbins said it best, don't try to be perfect. Just try to be an excellent example of being human. That's what some of us in the workforce have lost sight of over the past few years. But many of us need that. We need people to remember we all are human. So here's some benefits of empathetic leadership. Let's talk about a couple benefits. Next. So you want to be able to recognize and understand your ability to interact effectively with other humans. Again, self-awareness. Self-aware leaders are the best because they know some of their own challenges that they have. They know how things they might need to improve. We all have areas to improve. We're all works in progress until we don't work anymore. We're all works of progress. So you want to remember, you want to think about how aware of you as are you of your emotions as you go through the day. I know sometimes mine go up and down depending on the situation, but you want to be cognizant of that when you're in front of your teams. Emotional regulation. How well do you use your emotion for you, especially when things are challenging? How well do you regulate those emotions? One of the hardest things we can do, especially as leaders, when you're a leader, You're not just in it for yourself, you're in it for other people. And we have to remember that. They're working with us, for us, helping us, and we have to be able to support them. How much do you care about the people, the way people experience you and your leadership? Again, we've all on this call, I'm sure that everybody can say they've had terrible managers and terrible leaders, and they've had great leaders. I myself have found that I've always learned more from the leaders that were bad. I've always said, oh gosh, I never want to be like that. And I've tried really hard. It's almost like when you grow up and you say, I don't want to be like my parents. And you realize that one day you are exactly like your parents, a combination thereof. So, you want to be the example that you're setting for your teams, the newer generations of leaders. And you want to be able to be a mentor to them as well, and not just a boss and not just a manager. Next, please. So, a lot of people talk about soft skills. I do not believe that empathy is a soft skill. I believe it's a fundamental human skill. And I think if you're going to be in a leadership position, you need to get that one down. Strategies would be, how you're influencing others, how you're creating belonging in your teams, in the workplace, how you help navigate uncertainty, because we've all been through it recently in the past few years. There's lots of uncertainty out there, especially if we're working in the biotech space. We know there's lots of uncertainty. People need help with that. They really do. One of the things that, and I've seen this, I've been part of it, and I've done them, is layoffs. As soon as there's layoffs in an organization, there's uncertainty. People are really, really, really scared. They're wondering what's in it for them. What's going to happen? Is the company going to shut down? Am I going to lose my job? We have to be able to navigate that. And the way to do that is with empathy. Again, we have to put ourselves in other shoes. We may be fine if we're laid off, but there's many people that aren't. They're not fine emotionally, financially, all different ways. So we have to be able to navigate that. And we want to connect empathetically. And then, as I said again, key thing is to manage your own emotions. Next, please. Next. Jim Carrey, funny Jim Carrey. He's been a bit of a philosopher lately, but I did see this quote and I thought it was great. The effect you have on others is the most valuable currency there is. And I truly believe that. People don't care what you know until they know you care. And that's so true. And people will always remember that about you, how you made them feel. So don't be that boss that people say, oh, I learned so much from that boss because they were terrible. You want to be the boss that everybody says, wow, they really helped me when I needed them. They really supported me. They weren't just ready to fire me because I had a bad couple months. They really wanted to find out what was going on and work with me. Better conflict resolution. I mean, when you work with people, there's conflict. There's no way around it. The role of empathy and leadership, fostering that understanding, it's critical when you want to resolve a conflict or promote collaboration within teams. Because again, when there's people working together, hopefully there's harmony, but there's lots of times there are moments of collaboration, especially when you're building your teams. So, and then you want to always understand different perspectives. I know I've talked about this a few times already. Grasp the diverse viewpoints. The reason we hire people, because they're diverse. We don't want people that are exactly like us. I mean, it would be kind of boring if everybody was the same. So we want to grasp those diverse viewpoints, because you can better facilitate your discussions, and it would help with your conflict resolution when you have these situations come up. Empathy and collaboration does definitely lead to a more harmonious, positive, and effective work environment. Next. Some challenges. Let's talk about couple challenges of working with empathy. And I know I probably have to talk faster, right, Annabelle? You can go next. Just a couple things. Balance empathy with decision making. So using empathy allows you to understand, again, the perspectives and emotions. A lot of times leaders have to make tough decisions that don't always please everyone. So, but you're prioritizing. Your job as a leader is to prioritize the organization's best interest. This does not always sit well with other people. Your job, again, is to show empathy when you deliver these messages. That's why you're managing. We want to get you to the leader point, because not everybody automatically knows how to lead. They know how to manage. Manage is more directive, right? So we want to strike a balance between compassion and the goals of the organization, because it's critical for effective leadership and also for team morale. Next. And again, I can't stress this enough. Understanding our own bias is critical, because recognizing personal cultural biases is the first step in fostering an inclusive leadership style. And it will help you with the empathy, but you have to be cognizant of your biases. Again, enhances connections and creates inclusivity, which is critical. Next. There is empathy fatigue, and that's when leaders focus so much on others' feelings that they kind of neglect themselves. So we don't want to get to that point either. Again, we want to be able to empathize. We want to be able to put ourselves in other situations, connect with them on a different level, but be cognizant of yourself and how much you let it impact yourself. Leaders must prioritize, and I don't say just leaders. I think everybody needs to prioritize self-care. You want to maintain your emotional health and be effective in your role. And then set boundaries. I think it's critical for leaders to set boundaries. You can support your team, support the well-being, but again, protect your own emotional well-being. That's critical. You can't support others. You can't be a parent. You can't do a leader if you're not taking care of you. And I always say, be the leader you wish you had. We always know the leader we don't want, or the one we had that we didn't learn anything from because they were just so ineffective. Think about that and be the leader you wish you had, that you needed to have. Not the leader maybe that you have above you that you really don't respect. Have the leader you want to be. Be the leader you want to be. So that's all I have. Again, just to summarize the importance of empathy, building a supportive culture, and it's benefits for everyone. Next. And I can ask everybody on the call, please stay in touch. I'm out there, I'm an HR consultant now, and I love to do more in-depth leadership training and work with different people and companies as mentors, even just to bring this home a little bit more.